right, everybody, we are going to get started. So, good morning, good afternoon. Appreciate everybody joining. My name is Brian Higgins. It's a pleasure to have you here. So, you are here for building your own AI outreach operating system, unlocking power of AI for effective outreach. So, I am just going here. Let's see. All right. So, the purpose of today is really to cover artificial intelligence and how you can build your own AI operating system. So, everybody knows that things have changed, to say the least. So, early in my career, it was dial for dollars. You're making 200 calls a day. We didn't have auto dialers, we didn't have a database, and we certainly didn't have any intelligence. So, thank you for coming here today. And what we're going to focus on and what we're going to learn is for you how to build a hyper targeted lead list using artificial intelligence. Okay, I'm going to share some of the tools that are out there, processes that I have and that I've done for my customers, and things that I have achieved over time, as well as AI enrichment and personalizations. How to take those prospects that you've built in the lead list and enrich them and make sure that it's authentic personalization when you're sending it out to people, and then how to create a repeatable inbound outbound machine, right? So this is about reaching out to people, but this is also about inbound leads. So if you get inbound leads, it's just as important to personalize that communication and have a conversation with people with what resonates, because you're most likely going to have a better experience and opportunity to convert them. And then finally, we'll wrap with some tools and an incentive. I'm not here to sell you anything today. I am here to educate you. I do want to offer you something at the end. You're going to get free tools, some prompts, as well as some 30-day trials and different things, so you can start to experience. There's no obligation, but it'd be good to stick around. So why are we all here? So I am sure that if you do manual prospecting, you're sick of it. It's time consuming. It takes you away from your selling activities. It's research intensive, and you know that there's better tools out here, which is probably why you've decided to join here. So building your own AI outreach operating system, your own process and automation will drastically increase your bandwidth of how many people you could touch per month, as well as improve the conversations that are happening and ultimately fill more leads into your pipeline and have that 24/7 access. So, I put together a report earlier in the year, but there was some alarming trends that I think are important to talk about briefly. And that's, 75% of sales reps say they're overwhelmed with their tech stack, right? Between Salesforce, ZoomInfo, whatever your CRM is, research, Google, all the different tools that you have to use to get your job done is overwhelming. And so, it's no surprise that according to Salesforce and HubSpot and others, a third-party study, 69% of sales reps missed their quota, which also corresponds to 72% of selling time is not selling time. 72% of your day is spent on non-sales related activities. So it's eating things up. And then on top of that, 68% of sales reps say they struggle to get leads. And then from a company perspective, 61% say they have traffic problems. Companies say over the course of the past 5 years, their cost of acquisition has increased by 50%. So with all those things, it's squeezing profits, it's increasing costs, it's increasing our quotas, which affects why we're missing our quotas. So there is a better way. So the good news is that according to McKinsey, companies using AI are 7 times more likely to meet or exceed their organizational goals. 83% of buyers who purchase AI see a positive ROI within 3 months. 82% of sales teams already using AI saw revenue growth this year, right? That's from Salesforce. And then finally, a quote that I really love is AI isn't replacing salespeople, it's supercharging them. Companies using AI for sales have been seeing 50% more leads and 60 to 70% shorter call times. All right. So real quick, who am I? I have been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. I've got over a decade of experience at Verizon and 4 to 5 years at the others. So I've been in B2B sales and marketing for over 20 years. And one thing that really defines me is how can I help people be better? What am I doing well today? What can I do better tomorrow? And that really fuels me. And that's really why I'm here today and to talk about some of the things that we're doing. And of course, the other thing that fuels me is my family. So, all right. So let's jump into this. So, at a simple look at this approach, it's ultimately how do we get that contact list to get the right people in it, right? How do we score those people and make sure they are the right fit? How do we enrich the people that fit and have a more personalized conversation? And then ultimately scale the outreach. Okay. So, when we look at how to build a hyper targeted lead list, before enrichment and before messaging and before automation and AI, the list is the multiplier, right? If you get that right, everything else works better. It makes, because it's that product market fit. It's saying the right message to the right person at the right time. So, we're going to focus on the list that's worth scaling. And the quality of the list is not about the volume. It's about relevance, intent, and timing. I've had campaigns that had 500 to 1,000 people in it and campaigns with hundreds of thousands of people in it. And the finite list of the smaller total addressable market that was laser focused on the right messaging to the right people had a better result percentage wise, right? You get more volume with higher volume, but when you look at the percentage of how many opens, replies, and positive replies, that's the relevance matters. So when we look at different signals, right? So instead of just pulling a list to say, I'm going to go into telecom or technology and I'm going to pull a list of these 3 titles that I'm searching, what if we're focused on a problem that our solution solves, right? Instead of a spray and pray and gathering a huge list of everybody, right? You market to everybody, you market to nobody. We look for signals, and those signals are really effective when you're focusing on the conversation to talk to them about. And I'll give you some examples. And then, you need leads that look like your best customers, not just leads that exist, right? So I'm going to talk about how AI can help you curate, filter, and assemble these lists and ultimately help you build that list that converts, right? So when we look at the different layers of this, when you start with the case studies you have, your most successful customers and the industries that they're in and the type of customer, that plays into social triggers when you're reaching out, right? You have social proof, you have credibility, and you have authority in their brand, right? If you reach out to somebody and say, I have a widget, they're probably not going to look at you. But if I have a widget for telecom, they might look at it. But then if you have a widget for a sales leader in telecom, that's a VP of sales or a director that's facing these 3 problems, then they're going to listen and they're going to pay attention. So modeling those things and having the credibility to focus is really where it starts, right? So then once you identify those customers, then we start looking at how we're going to go about going after them. And there's a tool here called oceans.io. And I'm going to, by the way, all the tools that I talk about, I'm going to send you the list afterwards. So you'll have some resources to look at. These are softwares and things that we use. So oceans.io is one that will take your type of prospect that you want to go after, and it will find thousands of other prospects like that company. You just put in the domain and it goes out and finds. It's like a really powerful lead list to find similar customers to who you're targeting, right? Another one is Built With. So this software gives intelligence as to customers of softwares that they might use. So for example, I have a list of ZoomInfo customers. Now, ZoomInfo is not giving out their list, but they leave a little trace on company websites and subdomains that they have that point back to the company that's available that Built With pulls from. So I pulled a list of 35,000 contacts that had ZoomInfo, and then I graded them and enriched them to figure out how do I contact the sales leaders of those companies, and basically worked backwards. And all that was driven by this list that I could put through AI and filter it out and start to personalize the right message, right? So we identify the right person, we model them, and we build the list of people, right? Then we have other layer on trigger signals. So if you have problems that people talk about online, we have the ability to take that data and put it right into a AI follow up, an outreach. Hey, I saw your post about this problem that you're solving related to, and it happens to be related to your product. And then that message becomes relevant, and the person might be in the market because they're talking about it, right? Or maybe they follow a specific technology or group, and this technology, Trigify and our B2B, really helps you with some intelligence on people who are engaging on your site, as well as engaging on content and things that are there. And it's called social listening. And again, that's AI driven. So a lot of that becomes very automated. Once you build the structure, which I'll share the tools and everything after. Once you build that structure, it's done. And then it's personalized and you just have to go in and tweak it, but it starts to generate more conversations for you. And it's super powerful. Of course, you could pull contacts from Zoom Info and Apollo and all the different players out there with the big lead lists. The one thing that is important that a lot of people miss with these lists is if you pull a big list of, say, people in, I use telecom because I came from Verizon for years. So let's say you pull a list of telecom. You're going to have telecom software companies, telecom marketing companies in there. You're going to have telecom related services that aren't your ideal customer, right? And so you may, like, I pulled lists of 10,000. After filtering it out, it became a list of 3,500. Like, you get a lot of stuff in there that does not fit. So it's important to score and prioritize with things that filter through, like Clay.com, which can plug in Anthropic's model called Claude, or OpenAI, ChatGPT, which we're all familiar with. But there's other models other than OpenAI, ChatGPT, right? There are things like I use Anthropic Claude for more of my copywriting and quality conversations. I use OpenAI for larger volume plays of scraping data and pulling information for these contacts. But so this process really is the process of building that list and then scoring them to make sure that they're there and they're the right person. So hopefully that makes sense for everybody. And by the way, these two that are pointing are completely automated for the most part. Once they're set up, they're set up. And the way I pull contacts and model, like if I'm pulling contacts from these platforms here, I do pull it either on a monthly or quarterly basis. And I try to over pull. So I know that for my current campaigns and my upcoming campaigns that I'm going to have enough contacts, because the worst thing you can do is kill the momentum of your campaigns. And I'm going to talk about the systems that you can plug these into to help reach out. All right. So AI enrichment and personalization at scale. How do you do that? So this is where generic outreach ends and intelligence begins, right? So when you take all that list data that you pulled, right? You pulled your contacts, you scored them, you made sure they're a fit for the campaign. I score it in two ways. I look, is the company a fit, right? If the company's a fit, then I say, is the contact a fit? Because I build very specific campaigns for the person, like the contact type that's in there, to make sure it's relevant, right? So you just want to make sure whatever the messaging is in the campaign, that it resonates with the person on the other end, because you'll have a better turnout, okay? And one of the tools that I'm going to give you at the end also is we'll write sales copy for you. We've trained it on customers that we've used. It'll ask you how many emails you want in your sequence, who the customer is. It'll ask you some information about you to build a value prop, and then it'll write your sequence. And you can ask for it to edit things, but the email writing, I'm gonna give you a huge advantage that I typically just give to my customers. I am going to give you guys that. So you'll have access to something that's going to be able to write emails and LinkedIn messages, and they're effective. Like, we use this in our business. So excited to share that with you. So in terms of the data enrichment, right? So we're going to go out and we are going to scrape LinkedIn. We're going to scrape the web, the news, and other online resources, and we're going to gather data. Okay. and we're going to fill holes, right? So maybe we just have their name and their email. We're going to go out and find more about the company using the domain inside of the email address, right? And we're going to go out and we're going to find information automatically, right? It's done in instant, right? And then we're going to build a profile, right? We may use a disc assessment. I build disc assessments for customers based on the jobs that someone was in. So it's not a perfect science, but you know, you're going to talk differently to a VP of sales than you would to a VP of IT or a VP of finance, right? If you're reaching out to these different people, there's a different communication style that resonates usually with people who take that job. So we tend to build a profile that changes how we communicate and the dynamics of what we're sharing. Okay. So we build that composite profile, and then we plug in our value prop. So I had mentioned that AI that asks you about your product, and it'll build a value prop. So the value prop gets built in the beginning, and when you plug that into the profile and the data enrichment, we can create a very personalized opening. And we've all gotten these fake emails, at least I have, being, a co-owner of my company. I get a lot of prospecting emails. I tend to respond to them and ask if they need help with personalization. But what's funny about them is they're so fake. And it's so obvious that it was like it went from a template to where everyone was getting the same email to now it's still inauthentic. It's fake. It's a fake compliment. So what I do with my customers is I take something about them and I observe, right? And I say something along the lines of, I notice that you guys are in this industry and got this for 20 years. Let's say, for example, you've been in this industry for 20 years. Okay. So it just observed something. And then it will speak about a problem specific to that person's title in that company at that industry as it relates to the value proposition of your solution. Okay. So it takes the data enrichment and the profile we built, and it writes it in a way to articulate a problem that's related to that person's title that they face and the solution that you provide. And it's very focused on the problem. Okay. And, like I reach out to sales leaders, right? And I might say, I know that manual prospecting is ineffective and time consuming, right? I noticed that your company has, very specific to that individual, right? It's going to write to that person. And ultimately, that personalized message keeps them reading, right? It keeps them reading. After they have that personalization, then you have your controls and your variables that you want to be A/B testing, right? If you're doing this in bulk, but kind of goes beyond this training. But you would have the rest of the copy as something you're testing. Okay. So what does this look like as a full system? We built our list. We're also using LinkedIn, right? We could pull lists from LinkedIn through social listening and triggers. Apollo's good for job changes, funding, new triggers that are out there, right? If you reach out to someone, like I have a customer who's in or a prospect I was just talking to, where they're in relocation packages, right? They manage a relocation, targeting companies that are hiring executives for a relocation package is a signal. It's a trigger, right? So I can scrape and send automatically every day to all the companies that are posting, directors or higher at their company. And we'll reach out automatically to the head of the VP of HR that is in a company that's 2,500 employees or greater, and it filters everything and it does it automatically, right? Once it's built because that's a specific industry and a problem that we're solving, and we build that automation to go there, and then it'll be personalized and outreach. Hey, John, I saw that you were hiring for a VP of IT in California. Have you considered incentivizing that title for, would you be open to a conversation about relocation? right? So it becomes a very relevant, and it cuts through the noise because it's specific to something that they're really dealing with, right? And then social listening, again, we touched on before. Now, when you're finding leads on LinkedIn, right? Like say you're listening on LinkedIn using some of these tools. Well, you don't have their email, right? So we can set automation for LinkedIn using AI with personalized outreach and responding, but also you got to find their email. So find email is a good resource for finding emails, which I'll also share at the end. And then again, clay.com helps you score, prioritize, and personalize that messaging by integrating OpenAI and Anthropic right into it. And then ultimately, your outreach is going to be either via LinkedIn, stuff like Expandy, or instantly, right? For email. Or, of course, your CRM. And the hardest part about your CRM that I see for companies is when everyone's doing it individually, like as an individual rep, sometimes you can't plug in the customization effectively. So you need to be able to upload a spreadsheet or ideally automate it using automation. So hopefully that made sense for outbound. For inbound, what we do is once we've reached out to these people, you may have some going to your website. And there are softwares like RB2B and Vector that can see people on your website, identify up to 70% of the people that are on the site. Now, I had situations in the past where I was given a license to a software that would give me company information. It would just tell me the company name. Well, if you're targeting a medium to large company and you get a company name, that doesn't help you, right? There's tens of thousands of employees, so that doesn't help you. But these softwares will give you an individual name, and it'll give you their LinkedIn profile, and then you can also set up automation and enrichment to be able to score that person, whether you want to reach out to them automatically. So when someone goes to our site, I have an automation where it identifies that person and then it sends them a LinkedIn connection request, and then it finds their email and it sends them an email and say, hey, flattered you stopped by our site. Or any AI projects that you're working on or cool things you want to talk about? Did you find what you're looking for? Right. So it becomes a very relevant trigger based outreach. And again, finding mail helps you find that email. And there's other ones out there, but that's one of the ones that we use. We use multiple depending on the industry. And then clay.com to enrich it using OpenAI, Anthropic, and then you're going to reach out via LinkedIn and email, right? And probably your CRM, right? So it's a lot of tech, and it's a stack, right? It's a tech stack. But once it's set up, it's set up. And we do come across companies where they have pieces of this and we help augment it, or they do it on their own. All right. So let's talk about AI and how to do the outreach itself, right? So there's a ton of tools out there. And if you don't stay up to date with this, for a week, you lose momentum and you get behind. I have an AI agent that just goes out and keeps me up to date on the industry because it's changing so fast. But the way we create a repeatable outbound machine for our customers, again, we take that high quality data, we're enriching it and going through, but then we store these things in a knowledge base. It's called a vector database, right? In a knowledge base where the AI can access it, right? So it'll manage the nurture sequence and the conversations after the fact. Let's say somebody responded, it'll look at the previous emails, it'll look at the previous history, it'll look at and have a relevant conversation with the person, right? Hey, it's been a week since the last time I heard from you. Is this something you're still interested in? It'll do that. It'll look at your CRM and you can make sure that it's having relevant conversations. Of course, there's human oversight and it's being trained, but once it's up, it works pretty well. And then we've done voice AI agents. We do a lot of that for inbound as well as speed to lead. And the way that works is you can build an AI voice agent that makes phone calls. And it sounds and feels human, but it's still, the technology has gotten drastically better. In fact, this past week, There's a company called 11 Labs that does text to speech and speech to text, right? Which are two of the softwares that are part of a voice agent. And when we build these things, one of the biggest problems is the natural conversation flow, right? And then, you call somebody and then somebody starts talking and it just abruptly cuts off, right? They solved that this week, and they have near real time. It sounds and feels human at this point, which is a little scary, right? But again, it's how do we leverage this to become super powered versus it taking over our job? Because if we leverage these things, we can have more meaningful conversations and do the things that AI can't. So from an inbound perspective, we may have leads coming in, we may have database reactivation. Again, we're gonna use these systems to build a knowledge base and then ultimately create custom responses to the people based on their previous engagement. And here's like an overview of an inbox manager assistant. So let's say an incoming lead or response to an outbound campaign comes in. The inbox manager will actually review the enrichment if it was an outbound campaign, or it'll enrich the data if it's an inbound campaign. So someone submits a form, maybe you had an event that you went to and that you scan their information. And the lead qualification assistant will say, is this person a good fit? Do I scale that? If you have, like, I have customers where they have a process for people that are under 50 employees that's different and automated, right? That's different and automated for someone who's 51 or higher employees. Like, that goes to a rep, right? They have different processes for different things, right? But you have the ability to use AI to send out the calendar invite, ultimately log information in your CRM, and do all these other things for you. All right, so just to kind of recap, we've talked about how to build hyper-targeted lead lists. I'm going to share all these enrichment and personalization tools and all the tools that we use, and ultimately some of the steps on how to create a repeatable inbound, outbound machine. Now, a lot of this can't be covered in a short amount of time. This toolkit that I'm going to send you today is going to have prompts that you can use in AI to generate profiles of customers on Do Better campaigns. Again, I'm going to give you an AI assistant that will write emails and LinkedIn campaigns and templates, and then links to tools and automation tools. And there's different trials and special offers and stuff that you're welcome to try of the various things that we've used and that I talk about today. So that is forthcoming. We also have a software that we've white labeled and customized. You're welcome to check it out. Again, there's no obligation to use it, but what's really cool about it is it unifies your communications, but it has AI in it, like the AI chatbots, the AI voice agents, the AI communications, the automations. It's all there, and it's not that expensive if you're using it in a system like this and somebody's building it out for you. We would help you with onboarding and setup, right? And you can integrate with any other tool. If you like, it is a CRM, but you could also use it with other CRMs, and you could plug it into any tool. It integrates with Google, Microsoft, all the things that you would want it to. And again, the 30-day trial, we're going to give you incoming voice, AI chat widgets, and AI reviews if that's relevant to your business. Obviously, if you're an individual contributor, the AI reviews might not matter as much, but it might for your company, and it's something. So you'll be able to try that. Again, no obligation, but it is something that is offered to you guys. So last thing is if you're going from New York City to LA a long time ago, it would take you 117 days to get there, right? Then we invented something new called horsepower, and it was not a horse, it was a car, of course. And that car can now get from New York to LA in 4 days, right? So there are now jets that can get there in 2 hours, right? So AI is that jet, and AI can do things for you that you can't do alone. And we are at a different point in history where if we leverage these things, we can. So again, I am willing to give you an audit if you want it, and help you set up that CRM system for you at no cost, right? If you want to keep it and you see value in it, it's a couple $100s a month. If you don't and you want to leave it and you just take the knowledge and the things that you learned, by all means, you could do that too. the system allows you to awaken dead leads, manage different things, build profiles, and basically see how AI can help your sales outreach and how you can build your own operating system in there. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you are wanting to get access to the system, I will send you a link by the end of the day with the toolkit and the links, as well as feel free to schedule with us. But it's not an obligation. You could just do the trial for 30 days and check it out. You don't have to even meet with us, but the offer is there to help you set it up and spend a couple hours with you to do that. And that's